Greetings, people of the interwebs. Jake here, and in this video I'll be doing this solo. Because I haven't had the chance to get together with the rest of the Pasty Pale team, so I'll be doing this trailer analysis on the Warcraft trailer by myself. So, initially my first thoughts on Warcraft is I knew that they've been wanting to, studios have been wanting to make a Warcraft movie for a long time, and for a long time, you just hear rumors, and so I didn't think anything of it until I heard from a coworker, which admittedly is not the most reliable source. That coworker in particular told me that they were making a Warcraft movie, and I was just like, nah, you're full of crap. But then sure enough, I looked it up on IMDb, and I actually started to hear casting and stuff like that. So after I heard that this was for sure actually getting made, I was getting a little excited, but also very apprehensive because most video game movies are terrible. But after I started seeing like the cast, the director Duncan Jones, and then I actually saw the trailer Friday when it came out. At first, my initial thought on the trailer is, though it was good, I thought like the orcs looked a little too CGI. But at the same time, though, the design of the orcs and even like the costumes and like the armor for like the knights and a lot of the characters, I loved it. Like it's one of those things where like at first I was a little taken aback by it. I guess because maybe it looked, I don't know, I guess like different. Like I guess I was expecting like the armor and the orcs or whatever to look more along the lines of something like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. But like when I actually saw the trailer, they look very accurate to how the orcs and the armor and stuff like that of the knights and the different races and characters look in the games. So I've actually only played Warcraft 3 in the expansion, which I loved. Haven't played a whole lot of World of Warcraft. I'll be honest, that game kind of ruined it for me. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but feel free to send the hate. Your hate completes me. But in my opinion, World of Warcraft, it's not a terrible game. It's fine. I just couldn't really get into it. I'd prefer them to make more RTS style Warcraft games, but that's neither here nor there. But anyways, so I never played the first Warcraft game, which I imagine is what the movie is going to be loosely based off of, like story and plot-wise. I know some of the basic stuff on the history of the world of Warcraft. I forget the name of the actual world in this universe. But again, after seeing like the design of the characters, their costumes and stuff like that, it actually got me a little excited because they actually make it look very accurate to how they are in the games, which that for me is a plus. Just little details like that. I mean, they could have easily just given them more generic looking, weapons and armor and designs and stuff like that, but instead whether they went out of their way to make the designs accurate to the games or that was just their original intention, hats off to them, because I love when movies do that, when they're adapting something from like a game or a movie, or like a movie adapting from a movie, adapting from like a game or a comic or something like that, when they actually use the source material and adapt it well. So that's a big bonus for me, but also the cast is really good from the actors that I'm familiar with, like Travis Fimmel from Vikings, really good actor, and I think if this film goes well, which I hope it does, then this will be like the role that really skyrockets him into like being a household name type of actor. You'll start to see him in everything, which I think would be great. Because again, I really like him, and he looks almost like identical to the character that he's playing Anduin in the games. So I know like a few months back they released pictures of, they would have the actor or actress next to the character that they're playing, and like a picture that they had of Anduin, the character, and then Travis Fimmel like I see why they cast him, because he looks almost dead on to the character. Which, again, that's just another bonus for me when they actually have the actor, when the actors look like the characters they're playing. So, yeah, I'm actually getting more excited for this film. I'm still very much apprehensive because it's a video game movie, and as I've said, pretty much all video game movies are terrible. And if they're not terrible, they're just kind of okay. Because a lot of studios just use these video game movies as cash grabs. They're kind of like, Tomb Raider's popular, let's make a Tomb Raider movie. Or, Resident Evil, which those are, the first two Resident Evil movies are okay. Like, they're fine, but then after that they got ridiculous, in my opinion. Yeah, just in general, studios, for whatever reason, don't take the time and care into properly adapting these movies, or these games into movies. So I'm hoping with this, it'll do one of two things. Again, if this movie does well, which again, I hope it does, it'll do one. I think it'll open the floodgates to studios doing more video game movies and actually doing them well. Not just doing it as a cash grab. They look at this movie, they see the success, and they're like, okay, that Warcraft movie properly, and I should probably turn my phone off when I do these things, or put it on vibrate. But yeah, they'll look at the Warcraft movie's success, again, if it is successful, which I think we're all hoping it will be, and they'll be like, okay, this movie did it well. They actually properly adapted it from the source material, the game, and it did well. The cast was all good, the production was good, so let's adapt this other video game popular video game property, and they'll adapt it, and they'll adapt it well. So that's one thing that I'm hoping. You'll see a lot more video game movies being made, and they'll be done much better than they have been in the past. Also, I'm hoping that this will open the floodgates to more fantasy-based films, because after Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, more so Lord of the Rings, a lot of people were expecting that to open the floodgates to like all these fantasy-based films. But the thing is, those movies were so good and so incredibly well done that a lot of people were intimidated to release fantasy-like films, because even if they did well, or even if they were well received by critics, a lot of people would be like, the movie is fine, but it's no Lord of the Rings. But I think with this movie, it's distanced itself enough from, the time of the release of the Lord of the Rings films, and even the Hobbit films, which, some people will say weren't that great, and, I'll agree to disagree with that. I've got certain issues with the Hobbit films. I like them overall, but that's a whole other thing. But I think this could be one of those films where people are like, is it going to be like the Hobbit films? And if it does well, then like, okay, cool. So it surpassed the Hobbit films. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it'll ever top Lord of the Rings. I don't think any fantasy movie will ever top Lord of the Rings. Not just because I'm a huge fan of those movies, but just because they're so well done. But I do think this movie has potential to be the next big fantasy franchise movie. And, again, also the next big video game movie. So, as I said, I really want this movie to do well for many reasons. Because I like the games, or the game that I played. I just like the whole lore behind it. So, I want this movie to succeed on so many different levels. Still, again, incredibly apprehensive. Another thing that I guess I'm a little concerned about, or maybe more just being nitpicky, is even though I do like the design of the orcs and like some of the creatures and stuff like that, I guess I'm worried that since they're so, they're CGI, a lot of the orcs and stuff like that, like there were some that were, very clearly just people with like, makeup and some prosthetics. I think more so the female orcs, but the males, these big, burly creatures, very much CGI. I think they use motion capture, which always makes it look better, but a slight concern is that you didn't see a whole lot of, like, the humans standing side by side to the orcs. Like, they'd be in the same scene, or they'd be close to each other, but not actually, like, right next to each other side by side. So I'm hoping that in this movie, the CGI will look nice compared to the, the actual actors, like the humans. Like, they'll blend it well, and it doesn't look too obvious like this is a computer animated orc, um, if that makes any sense. I'm hoping that like it'll blend really well, where even though you know it's a computer animated orc, it looks like it could be, you know, potentially real. Like, it doesn't take you out of the film, because there's some movies where they'll use a lot of computer animation for, you know, like a monster or something like that, and it looks too computer animated, and it kind of takes me out of the film. But again, that's just me being a little nitpicky, and again, that's just a slight concern. Because, you know, even if it doesn't look great, like, you know, the orcs and the humans standing side by side, as long as the story is good and, you know, the acting is really good, I think it'll be fine. Like, it won't take me out of the movie too much where it ruins it. But, again, that's just a slight concern. Hopefully, again, I'll be wrong and it'll look great. But, also, again, the story, I think, is, for the most part, judging from the trailer, fairly basic. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything groundbreaking, because it looks like it's just a clash between cultures, basically, which is, you know, I like that. I'm not saying, like, the fact that it's very basic is gonna ruin it. It's just, you have the humans, and then you have the orcs, and their cultures are clashing, which, in any point when you have two cultures coming together, they're gonna clash. Whether it's gonna be clashing, like, violently, like, all-out war, or just you have certain moments of tension, or whatever. So I like that, but also like that, judging from the trailer in this movie, it looks like it's not just going to be like the humans' perspective, where they're like, oh, the orcs are these brutal savages, we have to kill them all. I mean, granted, you do have actually a character in the trailer that said something more along those lines. Because again, in those situations, you'll have, you know, you'll have certain groups of the people, of the population, that are like, ah, you know, whatever, they're another culture of creatures or people. So long as they don't, you know, mess with us, whatever, they can live their lives to their fullest. But then you'll have the other people who see it as a threat. They're like, no, they're a threat because they're different. We have to eradicate them. But I think you'll also see that on the orc side, where, you know, some of them, they just want to survive, and teaming up with humans will be the only means of surviving. And then you'll have the radical group of the orcs who are like, nah, we've been living on our own for, you know, thousands of years, we don't need them. So I think that'll be interesting to see both the perspectives of the humans and the orcs, rather than just, like, one of them. And maybe, like, just a couple characters who are kind of like, oh no, I wasn't a part of the radical group, I'm with you guys. So I think that'll be really interesting to see in this movie, and I think if executed well, then that'll just make this movie an even better experience. And it'll be more accurate to the games, from what I understand, of, you know, the first two games. And also, I think if this movie does well, which I do hope they do, I hope they at least do a trilogy, so that way they can get to the storyline of the third game, because that was really good. I loved it, and I'm probably gonna replay it, actually, because I love that game so much. But yeah, I think they're eventually gonna build up, whether in this film or not. I think it's going to be one of those things where, you know, the humans and the orcs will be at war. You know, certain factions of the humans and the orcs will be at war, and then that's when the Scourge shows up. Like in the games, the undead. That's when they show up, and then, in the midst of battle, they kind of just look at all as the undead horde are approaching them. They're like, okay, look, I hate your guts, but this thing is a much bigger threat, so we need to team together, reluctantly, of course, to defeat these guys, and then once we defeat those guys, we can get back to hating each other, and then we can eradicate each other as we originally planned. So again, I'm not expecting a whole lot, like, groundbreaking, like, anything like that story-wise, but I'm a huge fantasy person, so I'm okay with it. Because again, sure, it's a little basic, but a lot of premises to a lot of movies are fairly basic. Like, again, Lord of the Rings. Good versus evil. That's pretty much all it boils down to. They just, you know, Tolkien is an incredible writer and did so much more with the whole good versus evil story. And I think that's what this movie is going to be, is not so much good versus evil, but just, you know, again, a clash of cultures where, you know, naturally, you know, a certain group are going to be intimidated, the other group are, you know, just kind of indifferent, or, you know, they just want to live peacefully together. So, I think there are certainly a lot of elements to this movie that are going to make it potentially really good. Again, the cast is good, the director's good, who's also one of the writers, which makes me even more excited that this movie could be good. And again, the special effects look really good. Again, I can't stress enough how well everything looked in this trailer. I'm still apprehensive. Again, I'm gonna keep describing my feelings toward this film until I see it as excited, but also incredibly apprehensive, because I don't want to have too high expectations and then go into this movie and be disappointed. So I'm hopefully, I'm trying to keep my excitement lower, so that way I can go into the movie and have some expectation, just kind of be like, okay, as of right now, I'm just expecting this movie to be okay at best, to save me from disappointment. So if I go into this movie expecting it to just be okay at best, and it surpasses my expectations, then that's even better. So that way this movie surpasses my expectations, it turns out to be great, and, you know, they'll continue making the Warcraft movies, which, again, I would love that. So, I think that pretty much wraps up my trailer analysis on the Warcraft trailer. Sorry if I got a little repetitive, but again, I did it by myself. Didn't have a whole lot of, didn't have a whole lot of other opinions going on, like I normally do, that I think, in my opinion, might make our trailer analysis more interesting in the channel here. But this is, again, neither of my co-hosts are really big into gaming. I don't think any of them have ever played Warcraft either, so that was more reason why I figured I'd just do this by myself. But yeah, sorry if I got a little repetitive and just kind of, rambled a little bit. But hopefully you enjoyed this trailer analysis, and, feel free to let me know what you think of the film. Are you super excited? Are you like me, you're excited but also apprehensive? Or do you not care? Whatever. Or do you just hate me because I don't care that much for World of Warcraft? It's whatever, man. Just feel free to leave your comments below, hateful, comments, positive comments, what have you. Just leave them in the comments below and let me know what you think about this movie and what you're expecting to see from this film. So, till next time, everyone, cheers.